So what kind of opportunities did I find for you today? Well, keep listening to Brand Appeal, where we talk about brand storytelling in the digital age, and I will let you know what's going on in Canada, US, and even Japan to help you figure out how you can read the stories to find opportunities for your business, yourself, and your career. So keep listening. Well, today the US and Japan had a trade deal, and the premiers of Canada wrapped up a 3-day summit where they got together to talk about the things that their provinces need and worked on getting rid of those provincial trade barriers that are getting in the way of interprovincial trade. That's right, we're getting closer to free trade from sea to sea to sea within Canada's national border. Who would have thought that it took someone like Trump for us to get our act together? Well, I'm going to start with the premiers and the opportunities that came out of their conversations and their press conferences. Doug Ford talked about how he wanted there to be a company for creating aluminum cans and tin cans. Instead of having to create the aluminum here, ship it down to the States, turn around, ship it down to the States so they can make the cans and then turn around and import those cans back to Canada. Well, here's the thing. You've got added cost of logistics. You've got added cost of those tariffs, those pesky tariffs. And now you have a can that's going to skyrocket the price of that beer and or soda that you love to drink on the weekend. So they're looking for someone who wants to start up an aluminum can manufacturing company in Ontario. And a tin can would be as nice as well. Now, maybe you would love to do that. Maybe you already create or manufacture aluminum products in Canada, and adding or expanding your business to have cans is kind of a no-brainer. But how can you get the equity, the investment, the money in order to do that in this time of uncertainty when chances are you're probably trying to be more careful with your money instead of investing it? Well, there's lots of options for you. Carney has announced programs to help businesses who want to manufacture a product that you usually buy in the States and import into Canada, utilizing steel in the steel and aluminum world. And if it's not manufactured in Canada, there is funds to help you get going. The BDC has loan programs, as well as small business company or organizations, Community Futures, as well as a lot of other smaller nonprofit community business community programs. They're there. You just need to go and look. But what if the government has given you as much as it can? You've borrowed as much as you want, or at least as much as you feel comfortable with. What else can you do? How can you find investors to maybe help invest in your company? Well, there's something called vested.ca. Vested.ca is a crowdsourcing company to help you sell shares in your company and to investors to bring in cash to help you expand your business. And with that, you can then go public eventually if you wish. There is always the option of going to one of the bigger dealer like Raymond James or another investment company and going public yourself with doing an IPO to get even more money. That's a conversation that you have to have with them. Maybe just a little bit of money that you're looking for, vested.ca works. But if you're looking for a lot of money, then you're going to probably want to go the IPO route. But there's a lot that has to happen before you'd be ready to become a publicly traded company. And you may not be ready to do that when you're just trying to buy or expand your production just that little bit, or you're trying to start out. There are other angel investors, other people who are looking for startup to give startup companies that little edge to help them get going. Maybe you can partner with someone. If it's aluminum cans, reach out to the bottlers. See if they're wanting to maybe invest in a aluminum can manufacturing company to ensure that they get affordable aluminum cans for their soda. These are the big bottlers, Pepsi and Pepsi Canada bottling and Coca-Cola bottling in Canada. Check with the associations, the craft beer associations, the bottlers associations, the aluminum associations. There's all sorts of people that you can talk to in order to find investors, help, and maybe even joint venture partnerships. There's lots of opportunity for you, but it means doing the work. It means taking a look and trying to figure it out. Well, how can you do it? And what's the next step? It takes a lot of confidence, and it has to be something that you're passionate about. If you're not really passionate about manufacturing aluminum cans and building a business that is about selling a product like aluminum cans, you're not going to enjoy yourself. You're not going to enjoy the process of building a company. But the right opportunity is there for the person that wants it. The other product that they're looking for having companies are, they need what are they called? I-beams? Steel I-beams, so that they can build these big, tall buildings that I live in. And turns out Canada does not manufacture them. And rebar, that's another thing that we need a manufacturer here in Canada to do. Now, of course, Doug Ford wants these manufacturing companies to be in Ontario, which is great, makes sense. But we also would need them here in the West. There's a reason why Canada's trade was easier to go north-south than it was to go east-west. Much easier for British Columbia to trade with Washington, Oregon, and California than it is to ship all the way across to Ontario or Newfoundland, Labrador, just because of the distance and the time it takes. It's a wide country. It's a large country. And we need more than one manufacturing area. So Doug Ford has the manufacturing in one spot. We need manufacturing here too. So check to see where the bottlers are. Where are the Coca-Cola and Pepsi bottlers of Canada located? And make sure that the plant is near those bottlers. Cuts down on the logistics, and it makes it a lot easier for them to be a dedicated customer. But it does take cash, but it is there. You just have to reach out. If you want to talk about it, of course, you can always go to marketappeal.com/book-online, and we can have a conversation about all the different places that can help you build this type of business, whether it's the I-beams and rebar or aluminum and tin cans. What other options are there for coming out of this meeting? Well, they talked a lot about healthcare, and that's always top of mind. And as you know, if you're in Canada, our healthcare has definitely gotten to the point where it's bursting at the seams, and we need investment. And there is that investment. And as we build out Canada's economy, we'll even get more investment. Now here in British Columbia, in Vancouver specifically, we have one hospital, St. Paul's, being built downtown Vancouver. We have Niagara just got a building permit for a hospital in the Niagara region. So they're building hospitals. They're hiring doctors. They're hiring nurses. So if you're in high school Or maybe you're in university doing a Bachelor of Science and you're thinking, what am I going to do with this Bachelor of Science when I graduate? And the idea of working in a lab, testing blood all the time, or is just not cutting it. Or actually, if you're doing a Bachelor of Science or a Bachelor of Arts, thinking that you're going to get a certain job, I would, if I were you, research that job. I come across more people who have graduated school to get marketing or business or Bachelor of Science especially, or Bachelor of Arts especially, and come out and they can't find work, they can't find jobs. Then they go get their masters and then they come out and they find out now they're overeducated for those starter jobs and they can't get jobs. Experience matters. So get your experience and your education along the way. Yes, it'd be a lot easier for you to go and get your PhD and then go and get work, but you need that experience in order to get that job that PhD would give you. So nursing is, my son just started his new career as a nurse. And there is a lot of different opportunities, a lot of different choices, a lot of different places that he could go. I mean, he loves the idea of being a traveling nurse, of going to different places in Canada and traveling around. Once he's gotten his ER certification, he plans on doing that. Doctors, we need doctors. And if you live in Manitoba, Brandon University, the University of Brandon, Manitoba, just added 10 more seats to their doctor's program. So they're committed to helping our healthcare and putting money into healthcare in order to get the staff that we need in order to fill those hospitals that are getting to the point of shovels in the ground. If you want to know more about the health industry and what kind of opportunities are coming up for career or even business, because maybe there's something that is missing and maybe you have that skill or that product that can bridge the gap. Talk to associations, talk to the nurses unions, or talk to the unions, talk to the associations, talk to the health authorities. Go for coffee. Let them know that you want to know as much as you can about that industry. And you're willing to buy them a cup of coffee and meet them on their terms at their time, because you're going to them to pick their brain and all you're offering them is a cup of coffee. What else came out of that meeting? There's so much that came out, because they're also talking about the projects, the National Major Projects Office that is going to be opening up on Labor Day and providing Canada with a lot of opportunities. And the Atlantic provinces have some serious projects in the energy sector when it comes to electricity. And they're further along than other projects. EB here in British Columbia said that we have $50 billion worth of projects in the planning stage. So there may be projects there that are going to end up getting chosen to go fast, faster, to be streamlined in order to get those shovels in the ground. Of course, Alberta, they want the pipeline. That's going to be a big issue on into the British Columbia side, but going the other way, they are very serious about replacing the number 5 pipeline, because the US has on occasion threatened to cut access, basically shut down number 5, which means Ontario and Quebec would no longer get the oil that they need to refine at their refineries, to give the citizens in Ontario and Quebec the fuel that they need to put into their vehicles and drive their cars, as well as the other things that they manufacture. Because let's be honest, oil, fuel, gas for cars is not the only product that comes out of refining oil. What else? So the Alberta, Saskatchewan, and Ontario, the three conservative premiers got together and signed an MOU. So this MOU is about a pipeline that would go from Alberta through the prairies to a new port in James Bay. Ford is very, very committed to having a port at James Bay, which competes with the Manitoba port in Churchill. So we have a competition here. Who's going to get the port infrastructure, the investment that needs to happen in order to get that port? I mean, Churchill's a running port. It's already there. It's already working, except for in the winter. It's got a town there. It's ready to go. And are they going to be the ones to get the LNG plants and the oil pipe and wharf, or what do you call that? Anyway, the terminal for the boats to come and fill up on our oil and take it over into Europe. Which one? Is it going to be Churchill or is it going to be James Bay? Which of the premiers is going to win? Wab Kinew or Doug Ford? I vote for Wab Kinew. Although Doug Ford needs that pipeline as well. So it'll be interesting to see who gets it. But it's interesting that that these premiers are coming together to sign these MOUs in order to get these projects at least in one step forward. These projects are a long way from being approved by the National Major Projects Office, because the ones that get approved are the ones that are a lot further along than just an MOU. So find out what projects your province is working on. In British Columbia, there's some mines up north that EB keeps talking about. As I said, in the Atlantic, they're talking about electric. In Ontario, they're talking about a lot of different things. Saskatchewan is talking about agriculture and the pipeline. Manitoba, an electric project up to Nunavut. And of course, BC has another electric project going from British Columbia up to the Yukon. Do you have the skills to work in those industries? Maybe you're going to have to move out of the downtown Vancouver areas or Toronto, or maybe you have to move from Alberta to Ontario, or from Ontario out to British Columbia. Have an adventure, especially if you're young. Have an adventure, move to a different province, meet new people, and find new opportunities, because there's a ton of them out there. So, I mean, there's some other things. I'm going to leave the premiers alone for a while. I've given you a lot of ideas on what to do with Canada, what's coming up, and what opportunities may be there for you, and career-wise and business-wise. But there's another thing that happened today. The Japan-US trade deal. Now, the Japan Prime Minister is out. He signed the deal and he's resigning because he lost an election. And on his way out, he signed this deal with the US. I personally think it's a really bad deal for Japan. And it does tell us a lot about what Canada is dealing with when it comes to dealing with Trump. We don't know what's been going on in these trade talks, but the deals that are getting announced give us a good idea of what Carney's up against and why he keeps saying he's only going to take a fair deal for Canada and nothing else. Now, here's what you need to know about the Canadian trade situation right now. Depending on who you listen to or what you read, the RBC has said that 90% of the goods that went from Canada to the States, 90% of them were CUSMA compliant. According to Carney, 75% of our exporters from Canada to the US are CUSMA compliant. What does that mean? That means that they're under the umbrella of the CUSMA deal that Trump signed with Trudeau and Mexico. And that deal is a free trade deal that enables products that are mainly made up of North American resources, goods, labor, fall under free trade. So even though we're in negotiations with Trump about tariffs, same with Mexico, the bulk of what we export to the States is still free trade. Some of it, like oil and potash, are things that the US wants, and Trump knows the US needs them. So they're tariffed at 10%. Then there's the industries that Trump is trying to kill in Canada and around the world, like our car industry, steel industry, our lumber industry. He would love our dairy industry. And what he wants is for the car industry in Canada to die so that it has to be rebuilt in the States. So that's why we have tariffs on 24% of the parts that come from Canada into the States. And here's the problem. They go from Canada to the States, back to Canada, back to the States, back to Canada. So that's a lot of tariff and re-tariffing on those products in order to get those cars built and onto the lots in Canada and in the US. Now, Japan is the other major car industry that Canadians, of the top 5 cars that Canadians drive, they all come from Asia. So in the States, a quarter of Japan's exports are cars to the States. And it's a very important part of Japan's trade. And right now, Japan is suffering a stagflation. Inflation's going up, and their economy has stalled or is beginning to shrink. Definitely, we got slow growth, high inflation. And that's why this deal with the US just doesn't make much sense. Because, yes, they went from 25% export to 15% export. So their cost of their cars is only going to go up probably around 15% in the States. But here's the thing. They have to create a fund, an investment fund of $550 billion that Trump can access to fund anything he wants to build, any business he wants to build. So he wants to build a car factory, he can access those funds to invest, to build that car factory in the US. Now, as an investor, you would think that they're going to get the revenues from that investment. Well, no. They get 10% of the profit, whereas the rest of the profit goes to the government coffers. So basically, Trump is building crown corporations. That's right. Trump is a socialist. He wants to build corporations that the government owns, that another company, a private company operates, and the government gets 90% of the profits. And Japan pays for the investment and only receives 10%. On top of that, they've opened up their markets to the rice producers of the States. That's a lot. And I don't understand why that's a good deal for Japan, who needs investment in their own economy in order to get it moving and growing so that they can get out of that stagflation situation. It really, I guess there's a reason for it, and I have to find out more before I can. But what opportunity is there for you in that trade agreement? Well, depending on what projects Trump wants to build, that's going to depend on what kind of opportunities there are. Now, Trump has talked a lot about pharmaceuticals being manufactured in the States, cars being manufactured in the States, semiconductors being manufactured in the States. So those three industries are definitely going to have some sort of building or investment. And if you're in construction, you know that so get reading those press releases, industry magazines, talk to the associations of those three industries in order to find the opportunities that are coming up, because they're going to need to build those factories and tool those factories. Then they're going to need workers in those factories. What kind of skills? What kind of skills are they going to need? What kind of education are they going to need? Those are the kind of things that you need to look at. If you're in high school, look at those industries. If you don't want to go to university, there's probably a lot of trades that those industries are going to need in order to not just build the factories, but to work in those factories. What does this tell us about what Carney's facing up against Trump, and why August 1st is probably not going to materialize in a deal? And really, I don't care if it materializes in a deal. I just want to stop negotiating with the guy. I think it's time to stay polite and move on. Okay, it's going to be 35% tariffs on anything that's not CUSMA, doesn't fall under the CUSMA umbrella, or isn't something that they want, like our oil and our potash. I mean, already our steel and aluminum have 50%. Our lumber has a bunch. So let's get on with it. Because what Trump wants is for us to buy American. Indonesia signed a deal with Trump in order to get their tariff rate. They had to agree to buy 50 planes from Boeing. Now, I don't know how much money Boeing gave Trump's campaign, but they seem to be getting one heck of a lot of deals. So those 50 planes, yeah, they're going to order them all right, but they probably are not going to be delivered for 50 years, considering the amount of orders Boeing has. So there's an opportunity. If you are in manufacturing and you want to be an aerospace engineer, they're going to need more engineers for these planes, and they're going to need airline mechanics to build these planes. So reach out to Boeing, see what they're doing. You may have to move. And that's a problem for some people. I get it. You grew up somewhere, your family's been there for a number of generations. I mean, I grew up in a place where my family had been for 4 generations. And my parents still live in the house that my great-grandfather built, and it's the nicest house in town. But there's no jobs there. There's no opportunities there. So you have to leave. And it's hard to leave small town life to go to somewhere for a job. But maybe it's time for these manufacturers to start looking to other places besides cities to build what they need to get built. It'll be less costly, and they will have people will move to get those jobs. So, maybe a little further away from Seattle for that new Boeing expansion that they're going to need to do in order to fulfill all those orders. What about Canada? Well, I do not want to see Canada have to buy anything from the States in order to have access to customers in the States. Because guess what? The States is going to buy stuff from Canada because the States needs what Canada sells. We sell resources to make stuff. And Trump wants to build factories in the States. They're going to need resources to build in those factories. They're going to need the critical minerals, the steel, the oil, the gas, the potash, or whatever else that we produce here. And we produce a lot of different things that they're going to need in order to build those cars, those semiconductors, those drugs, and anything else that Trump wants to build as a factory in the US. So Canada has everything that the States wants. The only other option that they have is to buy from China, buy from Russia, or for those critical minerals, Ukraine, which is in the middle of a war right now. And Canada is right next door with a very secure economy and relationships. So yes, tariffs are going to be an issue. If they can get it cheaper from somewhere else, they will. But it's going to take time for that to happen. And a lot of what we sell, those resources, are CUSMA compliant. So those resources go until next year will be traded or exported into the States with zero tariff. So right now we're in a good position. We can walk away from this negotiation. And I really think that we should. I think enough's enough. It's time to be polite and move on. And that will give us opportunities because now investors know, okay, this is the deal. We still have CUSMA, we still have 35%. Canada's, if we want to be closer to the resources for manufacturing, if we want to be closer to the resources for whatever, or we need the resources, we know that Canada's got them. We can do a deal with Canada because to do a deal with the States is, well, quite frankly, ludicrous, insane. Because he's all over the place. So there's opportunities for Canadians to go out into the world and make deals. And if you're thinking, well, I don't know how to do that. Guess what? The government has given a company some support, financial support to help you learn how to export your product, your resource to other countries. Don't know anything about it? Well, of course, you can always contact me. Go to marketappeal.com/book-online, make an appointment, we can have a conversation. Or you can call up your MP or your MLA. They're there to help you and let you know where these resources are. There's a lot out there. You just have to ask. And I know it's hard to ask. It's hard to say, I want that. Because what if you say, I want that? And everyone goes, well, you can't have that. You're not good enough. Who'd want to give you that? That's a huge fear that a lot of people have. And it keeps them from reaching out and grabbing onto that thing and saying, I want this. Well, now it's your chance. In this insane economy that's changing rapidly, you have the opportunity to figure out what it is you want and how to get it. Because there's lots of opportunities out there. You just have to understand what's going on where the resources are, and how you can get your share. Well, until next time, peel out.